Welcome back to Simbright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful side wrapped gathered sleeveless gown. So this is what I came out with. So this is the front piece and it has a tiny rope at the front. I'm going to quickly wrap it, or I'm going to tie it to the back right now. So this is the front piece. It has a front and a back piece. So you just go ahead and tie the front piece on your waistline with a tiny rope to the back. After that is done, I'm going to pick up the back piece, the back panel with the bold belt, and I'm going to tie it to my taste to the front. So this is how I tied it. You can tie it or style it the way you want. So this sleeveless gathered wrapped gown is very beautiful. You can also wear something inside. If you don't want it sleeveless, you can just wear a top inside and wear this gathered wrap gown. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn more. So here I am using 4 yards of Ankara fabric. My fabric is only 4 yards. So if you're on a plus size, you can use 4.5 yards or 5 yards if you're on a plus size. So right here, I'm going to have a little calculation of the full length I'm working with is 43 inches. Half length is 17 inches. So I'm going to take away 43 from 17, so I'll be able to get the length of the down part where I'm going to gather. So the down part measures 26 inches. Now I'm going to pick up my 4 yards of Ankara fabric. I'm going to fold this 4 yards of Ankara fabric right now. I'll just keep folding it, so I'll be able to cut out the down part of the length 26 inches. So the Ankara comes at 45 inches and I'm using 4 yards of Ankara fabric. So I'm folding the 4 yards of Ankara fabric. I'll keep folding it until I get to the point I want to take the measurement. So right here, I folded it and I want to take 26 inches off the length of Ankara fabric, which is 45. So I will measure from this point 26 inches, which is the down part, and I'm going to cut it out. So place your tape on the beginning of your Ankara fabric after folding the 4 yards. Then cut out the down part and keep. So this is the first thing you are going to do, so you don't run out of fabric. Make sure you have the gathered part already. So this 4 yards right now, I am going to place it on just one fold. You know we have the front panel and the back panel. So I'll just go ahead and divide the 4 yards into 2. So I'm going to gather 2 yards in the front and 2 yards at the back panel. So I'll just go ahead and set that part aside. So the remaining of my fabric, this is what I got right. I'm going to use it to work for the upper piece. For the upper piece, I'm placing it on fold using my waist circumference divided by 4. Whatever I get, I'll divide it by 2, then add the both together. So after placing it, after folding it, I got 16 inches for me. So I'm going to cut out that 16 inches. Then I'm going to explain to you how I got this 16 inches. So here is my 16 inches which I folded. I use my waist circumference, which is 40 inches, divide by 4. Whatever you have, divide by 4. I have 10 inches. This 10 inches, you divide it again by 2. Whatever the result is, add the 10 and the 5 together. Mine is 15 plus 1 inch seam allowance. That gave me 16 inches. So that is how you are going to fold your fabric. I believe you understand the calculation. So after folding, I'm going to make a border line. I've made my border line and I'm going to place my tape on the border line. I'm going to measure my chest line at 9 inches. Then my waistline is 17 inches. I added half inch to it, which is 17.5. So I'm going to rule my waistline I'll highlight the chest line, so we'll begin to draft the front bodice. Now I'm going to place my tape on the shoulder and measure my shoulder, divide by 2 plus half an inch. It gave me 8 inches. So I'm going to mark the 8 inches on the chest line and then rule a straight line for my armhole. So I left 1 inch for my shoulder drop. The neck width I used is 3.5. I'm going to mark the 3.5. And the neck depth I used is 7 inches. 7 inches. This is a sweetheart neckline. So I'm going to rule the 3.5 downwards and connect it to the 7 inches depth of my neckline. So next I'm going to place my tape and take 1 inch shoulder drop and connect it to the 3.5 inches neckline. Then on the neck depth, I'll come up by 2.5 inches. I'm going to connect my sweetheart neckline using my curved ruler. So you can see how I place my curved ruler for the sweetheart. So I decided to add seam allowance together. So I added 1/2 inch seam allowance. So just go ahead and add 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I added a 1/2 inch all the way to the center front line for the neck depth. So I have my seam allowance for the sweetheart. So neck depth for the back is 1 inch. I went ahead and connected 1 inch to the 3.5 inches width of the neck width. I got the midpoint of my armhole. I went in by 1/2 an inch for the front piece, for the front armhole, connected with a straight line. Right on the chest line, I'm going to take my bust circumference divide by 4. I marked 10 inches and I added 1/2 an inch for ease. So I'm going to connect my armhole, front armhole, and I'm going to connect the back armhole. So I'm drafting front and back on this same piece. So after that, we'll go over to the side wrap. So on the side of this dress right now, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark 5 inches upwards. So this 5 inches I marked upwards, I'm going to connect it right from the side bust circumference, okay? Just follow that marking of your bust circumference divided by 4 plus the ease and connect it from that point. So make sure you connect it directly to the bust circumference divided by 4 so you don't have your armhole too exposed. So I connected it right from that point to the 5 inches on the side wrap. So this is what I got right here. So I connected the back neckline to it as well. Now we are done with the front piece. So I'm going to place what I have right here on the back, but before that I'm going to follow or trace the back piece. So this is the back armhole and cutting through. Make sure you add 1/2 inch for your shoulder seam allowance. I added 1/2 inch for my shoulder seam allowance and cut only the back neckline. So after cutting this is what I got. I'm going to bring in my fabric, which I also folded at the same 16 inches. And I'll go ahead and place the center front to the center back, which is on fold. I'll secure with my pin. Right now, I'm going to trace out what I got right now. So I'll just trace out the neckline. Just keep tracing what we have already cut before. Just trace it to the back. So after we are done tracing out, I'm going to take off the back piece so we'll be able to cut out the front piece. So I'll take off my pins right now. I'll set the back piece aside. Then we are going to cut out the lines for the front piece. Now I'm going to cut out the armhole for the front. And then I'm going to also cut out the neckline for the front. So for the sweetheart neckline, I'll just follow the line I marked, which is my seam allowance. So this is what I got after I'm done cutting. So when I open it, you can see how beautiful this sweetheart neckline is looking right here. Now I've cut out the lining, so you are going to cut your lining the same way, okay? So just cut it out exactly the same way we cut the fabric. I've already cut all of them. Now we are going to start placing right side to right side because we want to stitch the neckline. So I'll place right side of my lining to the right side of the fabric. I'm going to secure the center front first. Then I'll secure the junctions of the neckline, that's the 4 corner edges. That is how you are going to secure them. Then go ahead and stitch 1/2 inch accordingly. I'll also do the same for the back. I'll place the right side of the back fabric to the right side of the lining, and I'll go ahead to stitch the neckline at 1/2 inch as well. So I'll just go ahead, secure with my pins, and run 1/2 inch stitches accordingly. So after stitching, I'm going to make notches. So make sure you make your notches. I'm making notches for the back. I'll also make notches for the front. Then I'll flip my seams to the lining and top stitch and give it a good press. So for the back, I am also going to make notches at the corners. Just watch the corners I'm making my notches. This is a sweetheart neckline, so you really need to be careful. So later I notched the sweetheart area. So the notches will help it to relax. So I flipped all my seams to the lining and top stitched. I have given them a good press. So you can see what I got right here. So the upper piece is ready. We want to start cutting out the belt. So for the belt, I just went ahead to cut my belt using the remaining fabric that is not part of the 4 yards, because I really need a long belt. So the width of my belt is 5 inches, but the length is the Ankara length of 45 inches. So I placed my fabric on fold and measured 5 inches, 5 inches on fold. So I went ahead to cut out the 5 inches on fold. So I'm going to cut out this 5 inches on fold into 2 places because I have 2 belts. So I folded my fabric again, and I'm going to trace out the 5 inches on fold with the length of 45 inches, which I've already cut. So I'll go ahead and cut all the way down. So that is going to serve as my belt. So after cutting the belt, I am going to, this is the part 5 inches that will be attached to the side, and this is the belt itself. So I just want to reduce the down part of the belt. I'm measuring 3 inches for it. So I just want to taper that 3 inches from that point, just so that my belt will not be too bold at the end of the belt. So I just measured 3 inches, and I'm going to rule the 3 inches to connect to the 5 inches on fold. So after I'm done doing that, I have to go ahead to cut or trim off the excess. So here I'm cutting off the excess I have on my belt. But if you want your belt to be as bold as the beginning of the belt, is okay, but I just thought of tapering the end of the belt. So you can see my 2 belts right now. So I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to cut the smaller belt. For the smaller belt, I will just cut 2 inches width. So I decided to cut 2 inches width for my smaller belt. So I went ahead and cut 2 inches for my smaller belt, and I'm going to fold it into 2, stitch close one end and stitch the other. So I am going to, after stitching, I'll go ahead and stitch the bolder one. So for the bolder belt, one part is on fold. I'll close one end and then stitch the other and leave the other end open. So after stitching, I went ahead to use my screwdriver to turn. So you can use whatever you want to use to turn the belt. So I kept turning the belt. So after turning the first belt, I also went ahead to turn the other. So here is my smaller belt, and the bigger belt, I also use my screwdriver to turn the bigger belt. So here is the bigger belt. I stitched the smaller end closed, and I'm going to fold it to get a squared corner. So I will just go ahead and push it inside and use my screwdriver and turn my belt as well. Now, after I'm done turning the belts, I'll just go over to the ironing table and I'm going to give it a good press. So here is my belt right here. I'm going to turn the both of them, and I gave them a good press, as you can see. So next we are going to insert the smaller belt. The smaller belt will be stitched to the front dress. So the open end of the belt, I'm going to place it half an inch above. So you have to leave half an inch above so you'll be able to stitch the gathers. So now I'm going to secure with my pin only on the fabric. I'll bring the other part of the belt and secure with my pin half an inch above only on the fabric as well. Next, I'm going to lay my lining on top of it, right side to right side. We are going to lay the lining right side to right side while the belt is on the inside. I'll go ahead and secure everything very neatly and clean. And I'm going to stitch half an inch from the belt end to the armhole end. So you can see how I'm taking my time to pin. Make sure you pin so you'll be able to get smooth edges. So after pinning gently, I'm going to stitch half an inch. So whatever I do on this side, I'm going to do on the other side as well. So I will stitch right now and stitch this other side, and then I will give it a good press. I will also top stitch on it as I can. So this is what I have right here. So I'll just go ahead and make notches. After stitching, make notches on the corners, okay? So wherever you have curvy parts, please always make notches on them so it will be easy for you to turn. So after notching right now, I'm going to turn it to the right side, but meanwhile, if I can, I'll just make edges, as you can see me make right there, just to make that part squared. Then if I can also go ahead and flip all the seams to the part of the lining. After turning it, I'm going to flip my seams to top stitch. So the top stitching will just help the dress to lay flat. So I'm going to top stitch on it, as you can see, as I can. So after top stitching, I gave it a good press, and you can see how neatly finished the front upper piece is. So coming over to the back piece, I'm going to repeat the same thing, but this time around we are going to attach the bold belt. So for the bold belt, the open end of 5 inches, I'm going to lay it on the fabric, but then I will leave half inch on the down part and half inch on the upper part before I secure with my pins. So I'll go ahead now to secure with my pins accordingly. I'll pin. So after pinning, I'll pin the other edge too. I'll leave half an inch up and half an inch down, and I'm going to secure with my pin. So I'll practically repeat the same process by laying the lining right side to right side on it. Then I'm going to stitch it just like I stitched the front piece. So I'll just go ahead and push in the belts, and then secure with my pins the lining. I'll place them accordingly, and I'll go ahead and stitch half an inch. I'll also stitch the armhole parts. After stitching, I'm going to notch. I will top stitch. So I'm done doing all of that. So this is what I got. So it's time for us to join the the shoulder seam lines together, the back and the front. So I'll just push in my hand. You can see where my hand is coming out. You pick the front piece like this. So this is the method you use whenever you want to turn a sleeveless dress. So I'm going to arrange it very well. You can see me tucking it in, but make sure the width of your shoulder seam line is the same. So when stitching, make sure they are the same. That is the only way this method will work. So I secured with my pins, as you can see, and then I'm going to run my 1/2 inch. So right here you can see I have all the 4 pieces, and I'll stitch at 1/2 inch. So after stitching, I took off my pins and I'm going to turn the dress to the right side. So when you turn it to the right side, you will see you have a neat finishing in and out of your dress. Can you see that? So now the front piece is very much ready. Now we are going to attach the down part, which we cut at the beginning of this tutorial, to the upper part of this dress to make it a complete wrap dress. So this is the down part of 26 inches length that we cut at the beginning. So we are going to gather each of them into the front and the back piece. But before that, don't forget to hem the side of the down part before you gather. So I will hem the other side too and then gather. So after hemming, this is what I got. So the size of the gathered part is neat, and I've gathered the upper piece. So I'll bring in the dress right now. So for the front piece, I'm going to attach the gathers from one end to the other. So I'll keep adjusting the gathers right here. So this front end is 2 yards that is gathered. Remember, we had 4 yards which we cut. So I've gathered into the front and the back, and the dress is very much ready. So I believe this class was helpful to you. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you for coming to this tutorial once again, and see you in the next one.